Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
Greetings, carbon-based units.
Alan Seiler,
What's up?
and Veronica Dashel.
Howdy.
Ooh, she's changing it up tonight.
Yeah.
Ooh, she's throwing us a curveball.
That's right.
I visited Earth Station Who, and I got,
Picking up the dialect.
yeah.
It is rubbed off on you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we're here tonight to celebrate a great year of Star Trek.
Holy cow.
I think the biggest year we've had at least since the late 90s, maybe ever. I mean, we had 48 weeks of Star Trek. I think it was 53 episodes and 5 shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not another year ever that can boast all of those things. So, yeah, I mean,
wow.
So even when DS9 and Voyager were running at the same time, were there? I don't think there were 53 episodes in one year.
No, it would only have been like 48-ish.
Yeah.
Maybe. I think they had
22, 24 episodes per season.
Yeah. It was.
Weren't they more like 26, 27 eps per season back then?
It depends on the season.
Yeah.
So it was.
That's right. You're right, because Voyager's first season was only 16 eps or something crazy like that.
And we're just barely over halfway through the year.
Well, we're talking about from August of last year, like the TV season.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So from Lower Decks until Lower Decks, I guess, is how we count the years now.
Exactly. So this morning I got up, at my usual time, and I got ready for work. I jumped in the shower, got dressed, getting all my work duds on, got out to the car, and I was just about to get in the car, and I thought, oh my God, I forgot to get up early today to watch Star Trek. And then I was like, nope. So I'm actually kind of glad to have a little month break here.
Yeah.
After like 50 weeks of nonstop Star Trek.
This time last year, when we were talking about covering all the new episodes when they came out, because when we started our show, Discovery season 3 had just ended, and for the first 6 months or so, there was no new Star Trek on. We were just talking about old Star Trek, but we didn't know it was going to be 48 weeks in a row.
Oh my gosh!
We kept saying, like, when is there going to be a break?
And now we have to go back to doing like topics for an entire hour-long show, and I don't even remember how we ever did that.
I know. Well, we thought we'd look back tonight at, some of the classics, like which episodes stood out, which ones were real stinkers. I mean, there's looking back at Star Trek, and there's the episodes that you remember all your life. There's the episodes that people reference all the time, and sometimes those are the great ones, and sometimes they're not the great ones. That's something that Michael Phillips just recently brought up in our Facebook group, was what makes a classic. Yeah. And looking back at the last year of Star Trek, I guess first thought is, which show jumped out to you the most? What's your favorite?
Yeah, I think, Michael, that's a very interesting question, because what makes a classic to one person is not to another. I was just listening to somebody yesterday who argued that Tuvix is a true classic. People talk about it and debate it, but they're arguing that thing as a classic up there with Balance of Terror.
Wow.
Which is fascinating. But I think it's just, what you like sometimes.
Yeah.
So we're talking about what we like from this season that we've considered classic.
From this past year,
This is going to be so incredibly cliched, but I gotta say the first episode of Strange New Worlds.
Wow.
They set it up well. They set up Pike well. I like the way he was out, and I just love the scenery with him with the horse out there and thinking about his fate. And I gotta say, Charles, I'm gonna go ahead and jump ahead to what might be a question later on, but it's so strange. But even if you ask for like the scene of the year, it is when he summoned the Enterprise down into the planet's atmosphere. That was that's a poster moment. That's a screen capture moment.
Poster moment.
Yeah.
It's meme-worthy, as they say.
Yes. That was a cool, straddle the prime directive, but get it done kind of moment. And it's the one where you can just throw all kinds of music around it, and it was awesome. And also, it did engender in me that sense of wonder we all have, is what would you do if you truly saw an alien spaceship appear in the sky like that?
Right.
I just loved it. And that, to me, set the tone of that show, and also captured the tone of old Star Trek at the same time.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Keith on that. Seemed the most Star Trek to me. However, I enjoyed Lower Decks the most.
Okay.
And I thought that Prodigy was the prettiest.
Okay.
Hey, good one. We hadn't talked about that award, Charles. The prettiest series.
Right.
Yeah, it's important. It's pretty.
It is that. I agree. So if we're talking about standout shows, got to be Lower Decks.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
God,
I can see
that show is solid from the minute it starts to the minute it ends.
Right.
And it's like I always want to stay positive and I always want to focus on the good stuff and not dwell on the negatives. And there are it's a couple of seasons this year that, we kind of got a little negative on, but I cannot think of a single thing to knock Lower Decks on. I mean, I enjoy it 100%.
110%.
Well, that's impossible.
No.
Alan, I agree with you, and it's so funny. I was thinking about this last night and today, and I was thinking if you had to do that thing where where somebody says if you could only keep one show, which one would you keep?
My answer is Star Trek.
Yeah,
I know
it's
that's
so
a
funny
cheat, but
because what you said, Alan, I agree with. I think that in honest overall consistency of quality and drama and comedy and science and adherence to Star Trek, I think Lower Decks is the best of the bunch.
Yep.
But if I had to keep one and one only, I would keep Strange New Worlds simply because I would like to keep a live action show.
Yeah.
But Lower Decks, I agree with you. I mean, I think y'all remember, I didn't even know anything about the creators of Lower Decks because I haven't really watched the cartoons that they had done. I know of them. So I was a little dubious about the animation and the big eyes and all that kind of weird stuff. And
It worked so well.
Yeah, and from the first episode. I've never seen anybody put this many Star Trek memes in. I've never seen anybody be able to introduce everything from tribbles to Mugatus.
Yep.
You
can say it however you want.
You're right.
That's true.
And do such a good job. Because so many times when I see things like the tribbles in the Star Trek Beyond Into Darkness and stuff, they feel forced, but they keep managing to cram stuff in, and it just works. And I love it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks are sort of tied for my favorite.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's those two
hard,
just rise to the top.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's hard not to just put those, dually. But I gotta say, Prodigy really surprised me.
Yeah,
like I knew I was going to enjoy it just because it's Star Trek, and just because it's it looks good, it's pretty, as we've heard. But I swear. And it took a little time. It took maybe half a season, but the second half of the season just propelled forward. Like I was there for the ride. It was so good.
Well, Prodigy was good from the start, and just lush. The visuals were just incredible from the start. But yeah, that episode 5 just cranked the Star Trek and didn't let up.
Oh my gosh.
You're going along, you're thinking like, well, it's good. I don't know if it really feels like Star
Trek.
Trek. And then episode 5 is just like, well, here's Spock and Odo and Uhura and Scotty. And you're like, okay, we're going now.
Yeah, we were all tentatively saying, well, it's good. And we were all saying things such as, well, it is kind of meant for a younger audience, and then there's always going to be a Star Wars influence. You're right, it's fine, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's so much better. And I look forward to a callback, but I look forward to so much more of Kate Mulgrew. And I've said so many times, I think one of the most underused and unappreciated characters in Trek history was Chakotay. And I would love to see him come into the series and do something. The fact that Robert Beltran has said he's going to come back is kind of cool, because everybody knows he was really bored with Voyager, and maybe he's going to be able to bring an energy that he really never showed on the series much. So I look forward to that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, we got a lot of legacy characters this year. Some of them with the original actors reprising the role, and then some of them recast. Chakotay is a great example of a character that we have agreed before on the show that was underused on Voyager. And Robert Beltran has made no bones over the years about how he felt about it. So the fact that they're engaging him, and hopefully they're going to give him some really good material coming up. He hasn't got a whole lot yet, but he hasn't really been on the show yet. But what other of the legacy characters jumped out to you this year?
Odo.
Well, yeah, that was a weird situation on the episode Kobayashi Maru, when you have that they're using the voice clips, something that I really didn't expect to ever happen.
Yeah. Which works in animation.
Yes.
Right. You know, you can piece together a single word, you know, and string a sentence together more or less and just animate around it, and it totally works.
Yeah.
Well, I would say it worked to an extent.
It worked to an extent.
I really enjoyed it, but
it was very clearly you're like, yeah, that's a clip. That's not someone trying to print.
It's not just that, but it's like Odo was the one that I think had the most dialogue, and you could tell that his stuff was pieced together from different episodes that all had different sound quality, and you know, it was like every sentence of his changed a little bit.
Yeah, I thought Odo actually worked. Of those, I thought he worked pretty well. I thought Spock's sound quality varied the most in those dialogue because they're pulling from Balance of Terror, they're pulling from Motion Picture, pulling from the 2009 movie. But I mean, it was just a treat to turn on Star Trek and Spock played by Leonard Nimoy and Rene Auberjonois as Odo, and it was just it's kind of thrilling. I mean, and then on the other hand of that, you've got like Gates McFadden in that same episode, doing new dialogue for Dr. Crusher.
And I feel like it's a shame because she got completely overlooked in favor of the other legacy characters who were clips basically, but were mostly, actors who had passed on, and and it was something really special to have those characters back and to have those characters in a scene together. And I feel like I wish Beverly had been brought back in an episode that was just her.
Right.
Yeah.
Having your one living actor that's doing new dialogue should have been featured a different way, I think.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully she'll board the Cerritos at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, I hope so.
Speaking of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Charles.
No, go right ahead.
As I speaking of talking about the shows, Anthony Williams. Hey, Anthony Williams commented in our comment in the chat here. Strange New Worlds was the sexiest.
That is accurate. That is accurate. They put together a good cast for that show.
That's true.
Yeah,
I don't know, Anthony. Did you see the Mugatu knocking boots?
The other Mugatu did.
Yeah, that was a can't unsee moment.
Right.
Yeah. And then we had a lot of legacy characters that were. Anthony Williams says, "Hey, Keith."
I love it. Now I'm gonna have to start having one of the, what do you call the sash that Worf wore and the batlet on me?
Right. And we had some legacy characters that were recast this year.
Yeah.
And I thought
quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few. And I mean, several Strange New Worlds. You also had the Borg Queen on Picard.
Yep.
So I mean, who jumped out to you there? Any performances there that you thought really sort of captured it?
Where'd he go?
I don't know. We just lost Keith.
Keith, where are you? I'm going to say, man, everybody on Strange New Worlds most everybody has really impressed me.
Mm-hmm.
And hang on, let me get him back. Welcome back.
I'm back. I had to glitch. Right, sorry, y'all.
Excellent. But I got to say, man, I have really, I was going to say Jess Bush, but then I think of Melissa Navia, who's just phenomenal. And Christina Chong, who is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I've really loved that whole cast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say too, though, I thought that the new version of the Borg Queen on Picard was really good.
Yeah.
Oh
gosh, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had tough ass to follow with. Was Alice Krieg and Susanna Thompson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had tough acts to follow. I thought she did a good
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But part of it was in the writing too. The character was written differently than any previous version had been, and I really, really liked it. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Right. Especially because I forget the actress's name, and I should remember the actress' name who played the Borg Queen, but I know she was on an episode of, wasn't it Enterprise? With gosh.
She was on Oasis with Rene Auberjonois.
Rene Auberjonois, right, where she played the daughter with the a theme they'd actually borrowed from Deep Space Nine, the thing where basically everybody was a holograph and she had been raised around what was basically an illusion. And she was such because she'd been raised in that environment and she was kind of under her father's thumb, she wasn't what I'd say meek, but she was much more of a self-deprecating and mild character. And so when I recognized her as the Borg Queen, it was very different to see her play that, especially with the kind of sarcasm and the jokes and the And the humorous menace that she portrayed, I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the Borg Queen is funny too, because we got both the new Borg Queen and Alice Krieg returning on Lower Decks as the hologram Borg Queen.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
Anthony says, if Beverly shows up in Lower Decks, you know it's going to be the Blazin' Bev version. And if you don't understand that reference, just follow Gates McFadden on Twitter.
I don't get it, just for reference.
If she does show up, I expect there to be some kind of candle joke somewhere in there. There's some kind of candle joke.
Please let that happen.
I mean,
yes.
Yes. We also had another comment from
like a special candle for her.
We had another comment from Facebook user. Don't know who that is. Said Pike's hair.
Yeah.
Yes.
The meme of the year.
Meme of the year. Pike's hair.
I've seen a lot of people emulating the Pike's Peak. You know, they're doing their own version. Yeah, that's people calling it the Pike's Peak and doing.
I did not know that.
Trying to achieve it. I haven't seen anyone quite get there yet. It's it's a
I don't have the hair for it, unfortunately.
No, I don't either.
Don't look at me.
Maybe 20 years ago.
I could probably do it.
You probably.
Yeah, you could rock it. So Pike's Peak, that's what it's being called?
Yep, Pike's Peak.
So it's up there with
has messed up to Facebook. And I knew that was you because that's what happened last time we did this.
Okay.
We've torn the mask off.
Exactly.
So we got
the end of a Scooby-Doo.
We got a new meme. I think my favorite is still the Picardigan.
Okay. Well, I mean, what episode do you think this year was like the most Star Trekiest? You know, whatever that means to you. What was the Star Trekiest thing that you saw this year?
You know, you kind of put those questions to us yesterday, I guess it was. So I've been thinking about this, and the one that I was gonna say is Kobayashi Maru.
Okay.
Because of all the returning characters. That just really like encapsulated Star Trek. Not just because of those characters coming back, but because of the way that the new characters were sort of incorporated into it, and they're being shown what Starfleet is all about. And I think that one really, really did sum up everything that's great about Star Trek for me.
Yeah. What about you, Keith?
I think I'm going back with SNW, Strange New Worlds, the first step of the first one. It reminded me so much of Trek, in the tone in the first contact, and the thing in the battle of having to. It's always a tough thing when you have to go to a planet and say, "Don't do what we're doing yet because you're not ready." You think about like in real world. I was listening to the news yesterday, and we were talking again about President Biden is over in Israel, and they're talking again about keeping Iran from having nuclear weapons. And we talk about this all the time, but if you think about it on the surface, it's a real hard thing when you have nuclear weapons to tell anybody in the world, well, you can't have them, even though we on our side say, well, these people are evil, they can't have them. And so I love that when he goes to this planet and this lady is like, look, we've been at war for this many generations, we're going to protect ourselves, and he has to tell them, it's always hard to, how do you tell the entire civilization you're not ready for what we have? And because the attitude is, who the hell are you? How dare you say that to us, right? And so I love that kind of dilemma where you have to explain to them you're not ready. It's insulting. And then if you look at shows like Enterprise, the Vulcans said it to us, you're not ready.
That's
so
true. Yeah,
right.
So I love that.
We didn't take too kindly to that.
You're right.
Yeah, there's an episode of Discovery that jumped out to me, and I don't remember what the title was offhand, but in the episode, there was the episode where they were debating in the Federation Council whether they should attack the 10C or whether they should send a first contact mission. And while the whole episode basically was this debate, meanwhile, it was cutting back and forth with Stamets and that and Zora, the AI, arguing that she's alive. And Stamets having to try to come to terms with that. And it was just, the whole episode was just...
That's a good one.
Yeah, they make jokes about Star Trek as people sitting around conference rooms debating politics and things like that. But that one, they really did. And for a show like Discovery, it's so... They like to go with the big action. They like to go with the big, events. And then just having an episode that was just philosophical discussions for the hour. I just loved that. I thought that was a great episode.
I agree with you. I agree. Yeah. And was it... I don't remember now. It was either the next to the last or the last episode of Discovery this year. I think it was next to the last. The one where they're figuring out how to communicate with these new aliens that are so different that there's no common ground. There's nothing that we have in any way to bridge that sort of chasm between us. I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I loved that one so much.
Yeah, I really like the whole thing in Discovery with these really alien aliens, and they're having to figure out like their pheromones and things to like, you know, send basic messages to them. I thought that was cool, just trying to establish contact with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Veronica? What was the Star Trekiest thing of the year?
So when you first said that, the first one that came to my mind was the Kayshawn puppet.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's all those all the things in the collector's area.
Yeah.
So I mean, and also that was a fairly helpful episode to me insofar as puppet building.
Making puppets.
Yep.
Yep. Because you made a lot of puppets for Dragon Con.
It was like 2 weeks before Dragon Con. It was perfect. Now they just have, because it comes out right before Dragon Con this year, first episode. So they need to give me something really cool to make a puppet of. And so I said, sell lots of them, and everyone listening should buy some.
Okay. Veronica likes the Ferengi, in case you've forgotten.
Ooh, Ferengi puppet.
Well, speaking of the Ferengi, I mean, we had 2 Ferengi episodes this year, which I don't think that's happened since the 90s, having 2 Ferengi episodes in a year. I mean, you have the one with the Mugatus, where you have the Ferengi on the planet. And then you had the Prodigy episode with Damon Nandi. And I just thought that was great. I just thought that it was great having just 2 Ferengi episodes come up in a year. Like it's just things that I used to love that are just all of a sudden coming back. I thought was great.
Yeah.
And there was okay, well, first of all, one of my standout episodes of the year, which I think is a later question, is the boxing episode of Discovery. And in that there was a changeling.
Oh yeah,
you know, that we got sort of a little chase scene through, you know, quote unquote the promenade of wherever this place is that they're having this boxing thing, and we get an actual changeling who actually changes and stuff. And I thought that I was so excited about that.
I know, because when they said changeling, sometimes in sci-fi the term changeling is just used sort of generally.
Exactly.
Right.
But when it actually turned into a changeling like Odo, and I was like, it's like a founder. It's like a real changeling.
It's like a real one.
That was a really exciting moment. I want to know more about that changeling. Like, what's it doing there?
I want to know more about the changelings as a whole.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, what's up with the Dominion in the 32nd century?
Right. And by Dominion, I'm also thinking Cardassians, and I'm thinking, who are those people with the helmets?
The Breen?
The Breen, thank you. I was totally mind blanking. I want to know. I mean, we never really did find out anything about them, even in DS9. They were just these weird characters that hung out with the, you know. So I want to see what they're up to.
Oh, the Breen were awesome. The weapons they developed, the fact that well, they claimed nobody had ever seen a Breen, although I think we figured out Kira had to have seen a Breen, but they were awesome. You're right. I'd love to see where they are. Technically, Odo could still be alive in the future, although of course with Renee gone, I don't know if they want to do something like that because they seem to be immortal.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see Odo recast, but I wouldn't mind if they said like he's part of the link now and he's part of all of us. I wouldn't mind if they went that sort of direction with it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So this is going back a ways, but Twin Peaks: The Return, the season 3 that happened in 2018, was supposed to have David Bowie featured pretty prominently, his character from the 90s, and of course he passed away before the. Well, actually, he was still alive when they started production, but he was just not in a place where he could do it. But they kept his character in the storyline in very interesting ways, in references, and in like a new character that was basically the embodiment of his. It was really cleverly done. And if they did something like that with Odo, I think that could work to keep the spirit of the character around without the actor being there to play him.
Like maybe Odo created a new link.
Hi, Dan.
So his link developed, and he's like part of all of the changelings from that link.
Okay, I feel like we're going down a rabbit hole. Talking about Odo. Well, getting back to the past year of Star Trek, I mean, to the people who are listening and commenting, what was your favorite episode? What were the standout episodes for you for the past year? I'd love to know what the listeners think.
Well, here's one from a Facebook user. I don't think this is the same Facebook user as earlier.
Okay.
Because I don't think Matt Sweatman went back to his cloak and dagger disguise. But whoever it is says, I think that Strange New Worlds is fast becoming better than Picard. That's a loaded statement.
Yeah, I'd agree with it though.
Yes.
I think.
Totally,
I agree with that
totally.
too. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I agree with that too.
The Strange New Worlds, I think, is more sure of its identity than Picard has been so
Yes.
far. I think the Strange New Worlds, they knew exactly what they wanted to do and they did it. Whereas Picard, I think, has struggled a little bit to figure out what the show should be.
Yeah, well, they got one more season to figure it out.
I know.
And the interesting thing is that when season 2 began, I was 100% on board.
Mhm.
Everything about it, the promo images, the earliest trailers, everything about it was like, this is what I love. I love like alt future kind of totalitarian kind of stuff, where people come in and they have to figure out how to embrace this new world and how they're going to navigate it without getting executed and all this kind of stuff. Man, I freaking love it. And then halfway through the season, like the train just fell off the tracks. I was like, dude, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I can see where they're trying to go with Picard, because one of the hardest things to deal with ever in fiction, whether it's books or movies and stuff, is how does your hero age?
Mhm.
How do they, how do they get older? Because he doesn't have the same physical stamina. And then they did that whole, they have to do what they have to do, that whole weird thing. Like any of us, let's be honest, if you woke up on the table and they're like, hey, we put you in this really new cool synth body and blah, 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 but it's like 100 years old and you're going to die in like 10 years. I'm like, what? You couldn't put me in a 25-year-old body that's got another 200 years to live? But of course they had to do that. And so, Patrick Stewart, he's not as physically powerful as he used to be. Even his voice is a little weaker than it was. So I kind of see, and also as he's gotten older, we've all talked about these stories were very semi-autobiographical about how the struggles he had growing up. So I agree with you, Alan. I was excited about it. I don't know if they pulled it off quite as well as I wanted them to, but I do see why he didn't come out from even season 1 as just a pure swashbuckling Picard's back. So I even kind of got what they were trying to do with this man who has doubts. He's gotten older. Yeah. I know some people felt betrayed that he had left the Federation. I like where they were trying to go. I don't think they landed it quite well, but I do understand where they were trying to go with it. Mm-hmm. And it would be very interesting to see how they're going to pull this all together in the 3rd season with so much of the other cast coming back. What is this going to be like? Because you can't have everybody be in swashbucklers and you don't have Data. So it's going to be very interesting. How do you write people getting older when they were your heroes for so long?
Yeah.
I got to admit, though, in the first episode of Picard this year, when he was addressing the Academy and going to a Starfleet vessel, I love that. I mean, I know that's not really what he has wanted to do with the character when he came back, but I love Picard's in Starfleet and doing Starfleety things.
Yeah.
Right. And I gotta say, I do agree with what Alan said too, was Picard in that fascist black uniform in
awesome.
the world. He was playing that. I tell you what, I wouldn't mind staying there for a few episodes.
Yeah.
All right, let me get a couple of, oh, sorry.
Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't have minded that at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so seeing the Lower Decks cast in uniform makes me want a live action episode. Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
100%.
And
110%.
Right. And as I've been saying since the first episode of Lower Decks comes out, I want a Lower Decks episode in the style of the animated series.
Yes.
Yes.
That would
and
be
like
great.
he says, Memento Mori for me, it was great to interview the director of that episode. I remember that one being a standout for all of us.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that was great. And he also stands up to defend Picard season 2, his favorite season of Trek ever.
Awesome.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
That is.
Whoa.
Wow,
a
dude, that's really
compliment.
cool.
Yeah. That's great. And that's the great thing about having all these different shows that are so different in style is that, maybe I love this one more than that one and someone else loves that one more than this one. Like there's something more for everybody, I think, than there was before when you had, one Star Trek show or 2 Star Trek shows on air all year long. If you didn't like, Voyager, you got to the point where Voyager is the only Star Trek to watch. You know, like no other
Right.
choices.
Yeah.
And Dan, that's really cool when people completely dislike something you love or love something you dislike, because as you're saying, that's diversity. It opens up so many conversations, because I would love to hear from somebody who loves season 2 of Picard.
Yeah.
You
There
know,
you go.
I know in the original series, I listened to a guy last year on another, I think I was somebody I was listening to on a YouTube thing, who thinks that the alternative factor from the original series was the best of the entire. And I've never heard that opinion before, ever.
No.
But it was fascinating I know, right? It was fascinating to listen to him make the case. It's
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah. And that's the great. I love hearing someone that likes a Star Trek I don't like, or vice versa.
Right.
Make their case. Explain to me why it's great. What am I missing?
Yeah.
But then going back to what Matt Sweatman said about the lower decks cast appearing in live action, or in their live action costumes on stage, and that was something I hadn't really thought about when we were preparing for this topic. Was there's a lot of Star Trek things going on in the real world associated with Star Trek that's really exciting too.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Williams commented, "Move Along Home is the greatest episode of Star Trek ever."
Oh,
Come on, Anthony, you BSing.
You're just trolling me, man. Come on.
Yeah.
But that's
Come
not
on.
the name of the episode, is it?
Move Along Home is.
That's
Yes.
actually the name of the episode?
Yes.
Yeah.
Move Along Home.
Yes.
What'd you
You know,
think it was?
it's the one where Janeway and what's his name turn into the salamander people. And then the two salamander people get split into two identities, one good and one bad, and they have to decide which one they're gonna keep. I'm kidding. I'm going off on a weird. And don't forget the ghost candle.
Right.
Yeah. And didn't we all say that, speaking of moving along home, did we all say we were all at the Dragon Con where that question came up, and he started singing? Were any of y'all there? Was it just me that year?
Yeah, we were there that year.
Oh,
Yeah, that was great. So if you really believe that, brother, I want to hear the defense of Move Along Home.
Nah, he's already fessed up.
Okay.
I like that episode.
I mean,
Well,
Yeah, but-
I need to watch it again because I've not ever watched it since the first time.
It was on
Since
here.
it aired on broadcast.
Well, yeah, now that Netflix doesn't have DS9 anymore, our nightly DS9 wall, we had to move over to Paramount Plus and start over from scratch. So we just went by Alan Moraine. I always call it episode Alan Moraine. We just went by that one just a few
Okay,
nights
that's
ago.
why I didn't think that was the right title.
Yeah, I never
because
call
I
it
was
Move
like,
Along Home.
yeah, okay. Because we always call it Adam Murray.
Well, and speaking of which, are there any episodes of this past year that, I mean, we've talked about some of the classics. Are there any episodes that you thought were just stinkers?
I don't remember the name, but what's the one we just saw with Dr. Babinga where the space entity
We know
I
reconfigured
knew
the
you were going
ship?
to say that.
Yeah.
No, that was
fantasy episode.
hilarious.
What was it called? What was the name of that? I didn't
The
write
Elysian
it.
Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You know what they always say, and it's so funny because you guys, you've all mentioned shows, whether it's Alternative Factor, Move Along Home, that are in some people's opinion, so bad they're memorable. That episode wasn't horrible, and then I was like, oh my god, this stinks. It literally didn't move me. I literally just sat there the entire time. I literally didn't laugh one time. The ending with the daughter was graphed on, and it seemed such a strange tonal shift. I do not dislike it, but sometimes it's worse when you're just not affected by a show. Even what happened with his daughter, it more kind of upset me because of the plot not making sense than like we talked about the time trial. Like you just handed your daughter over some weird space entity.
Yeah.
Well,
but it just
Anthony's
didn't do
on
much
board
for
with
me.
you.
Yeah, it just didn't do much for me. And I also wanted to see a little bit more of Dr. Mabinga, but I don't think that was the best show to showcase him either. So it just didn't do a lot for me. It's not a show I would ever want to revisit, not because I hate it. It just didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I didn't like that one as much either. I mean, I was kind of in the middle on it, but at least it was fun bad. There was an episode of Picard, because of the themes it dealt with suicide, and I have some personal reasons for not caring for that and not finding it entertaining, that I didn't care for that episode, the way it presented that. So as far as being an episode that I didn't think was bad necessarily, but it's kind of a fun that I don't really care for, I would say the Elysian Kingdom, and then the Picard suicide episode I didn't really care for at all. Sorry to bring it down. What about you, Alan?
What was the question? I don't remember.
What were any stinkers this year? Episodes that jumped out to you that you just didn't care for?
Come back to me on that one.
Okay, Veronica.
And also, by the way, I'm sorry, real quick. By the way, to say, because we're talking about all the series, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, all the ones this past.
Yeah, literally the only one that stood out was that one. Not because
Okay.
again I hated it, because it just like
That's a good run.
that actually
53
is.
episodes,
Yeah.
and there's one you don't like.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
think of
That's a good track record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one that I just didn't like.
Uh-huh.
There was several from Discovery
Okay.
I was going to say
and
that too. Yeah.
Picard
Yeah.
that I was like, there was one I feel like that was Picard that I was upset at the ending. I didn't dislike the episode, but I was like, oh, that's
What was
not
that?
how it's supposed to end. I have no idea what it is.
That's
I don't
useful.
remember what it is. But
I remember there was something
I
at
remember-
in the second half of Disco that I was like,
Yeah.
but
I
again,
feel like it. Oh no. Okay, I remember what it was. It was with the
Gorn episode.
Gorn. Yes,
wait, which
that was
one?
the one.
The first one or the second
the
one?
running the alien episode.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the one where I was like, oh no, because Dimmer died at the end. It's stupid and pointless and useless. It's
Well, his
absolutely no
contract
reason.
was up, so
I
Right.
can't say much, Veronica. I made a promise last week I was not going to say anything bad about new track ideas and canon violations, so I'm not going to say anything about the Gorge showing up. Although I will say, if we want to say something positive, you notice it was sad, but you notice we all commented on how Himmer, right? I can't say Himmer.
Hammer.
We all commented on how he died because it was kind of sad, weird, and maybe kind of funny at the same time. We just kind of like, you remember, I think Alan or Charles, y'all said, there he goes off the side of the ship. And it was kind of
What
like,
was your line, Alan?
Oh, where I said they, all this character development, and they just threw it out the window.
that was
Literally.
it, right. So at least that was funny. I mean, because I looked at my notes, and I looked at my notes again today, and I literally said, he's not really dead, is he? Because
Yeah.
I didn't know the actor had only contracted 1 year for that role.
Yeah.
So it was sad, it was weird, but because we didn't get enough of him, I didn't have a huge sadness. It wasn't like, oh no, not him. I saw
Yeah.
potential, but we never got to know him. So I'm just going, dude just literally ran off the side of the ship. So it was almost funny in a weird way.
Yeah.
Almost.
So Matt Sweatman says, I don't think there were any episodes of this run that's a stinker. Certainly some not as strong, but I never regretted giving the show my time. Well, I 100% agree with that.
Yes.
I mean,
Awesome,
I
Matt.
never, ever thought, oh, God, that was a waste of a Thursday.
Right.
Watching
No.
that crappy episode. Even the ones that I didn't really like, I still was glad that I saw them. And there were still moments in each one of them that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and it's new Star Trek, and it's new Star Trek that's being really well made by really talented people. So it's I mean, I have a great time every Thursday getting up early to watch Star Trek and then thinking about it all day and watching it again when I get home. Whether it's an episode that I loved or whether it's an episode that I loved less,
Yeah.
Dan points out that the Strange New Worlds finale was frustrating.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed, Dan. But why do you think so, Dan?
And Elaine says her least favorite was the Orville season premiere. Snarky. And Anthony Williams breaks out with hammer time.
Well, what performances this year really jumped out to you? Was there any actors or acting in particular that you thought that was just great? Like somebody who just rises above the rest?
The woman playing Uhura, and I am not remembering her name.
Celia Rose Gooding.
Yes. See, that's the name I was gonna say. Sort of. I was gonna say Rose Celia Gooding.
Well, you're in the neighborhood.
I was gonna be pretty close, but I didn't want to butcher the name.
In your defense, there's a lot of new names to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Celia Rose Gooding is great. I think she's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. I want to jump toward voice cast because it's so easy to think of the ones that you actually see on screen. But I think that the kid who plays Zero on Prodigy does a wonderful job. Well, actually, that whole cast does. Yeah. Especially the younger ones who are playing some of the younger characters, I think have done really wonderful work.
Yeah.
But also the Lower Decks main cast has been just spectacular.
Oh yeah,
they're
kill fantastic.
It.
Yeah,
kill it.
And I think that Tendi, whose name I just forgot, I think she has an incredibly expressive voice. I just
Yes, she
love her
does.
performance consistently.
That's Noelle Wells.
Noelle Wells, that's it.
Yep.
It's-
Ex-cast member of Saturday Night Live. I will never
Oh.
forget who plays Tindy.
And then in live action, I thought that Girardi was great this year.
Yes.
I think that they really gave her some heavy material, and she was knocking it out of the park.
I totally agree, man. She blew me away this year. I
Yeah.
thought she was phenomenal.
her and the Borg Queen were the highlight of
Yeah.
Picard.
Yes,
Yeah,
I thought so
totally.
too.
Totally.
Could have watched Girardi, Borg Queen.
I would watch that spinoff.
Yeah.
Paul Wesley's portrayal of Kirk was just ... awful.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with you on that, Dan. But I will say that he doesn't really feel like Kirk quite to me yet. And I had the same sort of experience with the new Uhura. The new Guinan when her first episode.
Yeah,
I wasn't really feeling it as Guinan. Not that she was doing a bad job.
Yeah.
But then as she
Right.
went along, I found that I liked her more and more and sort of warmed up to her. So I think sometimes for me it takes a little time. You know, he didn't really scream Kirk to me, but I think he's doing a good performance.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that he's at a disadvantage in that he's playing a Kirk farther down the timeline in a different way because it's a Kirk that doesn't have the same experiences and influences of other characters around him who shaped the one that we know from William Shatner. I think this is a different Kirk, and so he's kind of at a disadvantage where people are comparing him to Shatner, but he's not playing the one that we know. He's playing one that developed in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think when we start to see him playing the younger Kirk in the current timeline, I think we're going to see a very different performance next season. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to differ.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like who would Kirk be if he didn't have Spock and Bones at his side?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And captaining the Enterprise instead of the Farragut.
Right.
I mean, it's a whole different scenario because you can see Shatner's approach to the character changing over the course of 3 seasons. His season 2 is different than his season 1.
That's true.
You know, so I think it's Paul Wesley was put in sort of an unwinnable situation. It was his Kobayashi Maru.
And how about you, Keith? Anybody jump out at you this year?
Yeah, I think I try not to judge shows before I see them because, you always talk about the internet is full of people who hate a movie or a show before it even comes on. So my well-known not love of the Abrams universe, even then, I never judged it beforehand. I will say, though, when I heard that there was a descendant of Khan on Strange New Worlds, I had to fight really hard not to go, oh my God, are you kidding me? I mean, I really did. But her performance has surprised me because she's doing 2 things. One, she's playing, an augment or a descendant of Khan or whatever, but she's also playing that kind of stoic military type person, which can be a real cliche. But Miss Chong has pulled it off to me so far. I expected the cliche. I'm like, oh God, great. She's playing the stoic Khan. She's playing the stoic security officer. But there's a vulnerability in how she plays it. Whether I like the Gorn being in this world or not, I feel that girl whose life and family were ruined and destroyed by the Gorn, and I feel that person who got shields up because she is a Khan, and because whether she was a Khan or not, getting messed around with by the Gorn was enough to give you problems. And she's pulled it off. She's really pulled it off, and I am stunned how much I like her performance.
Yeah, me too. Totally agreed.
She reminds me a lot of early Kira.
Yes.
Sort of
Yeah.
at the beginning of DS9.
Good one.
And they've hinted in this episode when they jump to the future how much she had warmed up in that 7 years that hopefully we're going to be seeing that arc play out on the show.
I think we will. I'm looking.
Can't believe I never thought about the comparison with Kira. You're right, because Kira in the first season stuff, sometimes you didn't like her, like when she was reporting on Cisco and stuff like that. She really had a chip on her shoulder.
Right. Yeah. All right. Let me get a backlog of comments here.
Awesome.
Matt Sweatman agrees about Celia Rose Gooding.
Yes.
Dan says he enjoyed Rebecca Romaine and Melissa Navia 100%.
Yeah.
Love them both.
Yes.
A Facebook user says Celia Rose Gooding as Uhura and Jess Bush as Nurse Chapel. 100%. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Possibly the same, possibly a different Facebook user says, I really don't want any more returning TOS characters. I want new characters like Himmer. I 100% agree with that too.
Amen, brother.
Although
Or
I'm
sister.
sure we're going to get Scotty next season. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
No,
That's a given.
no,
That is
no,
a given.
no.
Well,
He
it's
was
not a
no.
gift. Now
literally
they've
It's-
said that there's going to be a new engineer next year, but it's not going to be Scotty.
Oh,
We don't-
haven't seen that.
Yeah, that
Okay,
he did
good.
say that in an interview. But
Good.
No.
I'm
No.
mentally preparing myself. We're gonna get Kirk. We're gonna get Bones at some point. We're gonna get
Yeah.
Sulu at some point. I mean, it's all gonna happen.
It's
eventually.
all going to
But
happen.
the ones I would want to have first is I want to have Roger Corby and Layla Kalomi. Those are the two that I want next year.
Okay.
Oh,
I do. Because what that means
I
for
can
the-
dig that.
Yeah, the Spock and Nurse Chapel situation. I really want to see how those two characters play into it.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I can see justifications for Corby and Layla, but not Scotty.
Sorry. Matt also says Ethan Peck is knocking it out of the park now that we're seeing him as Spock in a more typical Trek adventure, as opposed to what we saw in Disco Season 2.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally agree. And possibly the same, possibly a different, possibly a third iteration of Facebook user. The generic Facebook user is Michael. Oh, hi, Michael Phillips.
Hey, Michael
Hello,
Phillips.
Michael.
Not sure why my name isn't showing up. I don't know. Weird. And we should not have Sulu. I mean, they got to save somebody.
Well, yeah,
And-
but they've got a few years, I would think. And
Exactly.
at some point, I would expect them all next year, but at some
No.
point,
So someone they probably will not have back is and as soon as I was saying it, his name is gone from my brain.
Good
Davy
job.
Jones, not
Chekhov.
JV Jones. Chekhov.
The monkeys? Oh, Davy
no,
Jones.
Yeah, I'm mentally
Wow.
That's who
preparing
he
myself.
was.
That
That-
Chekhov. He's a daydream believer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm mentally preparing myself that at some point there's going to be Cadet Chekhov. There's going to be Tribbles at some point.
Yeah.
They've not shown a whole lot of restraint with that kind of stuff. So I'm
yeah,
just preparing myself
yeah.
now, finding my happy place, and I'm just going to go along with the story they want to tell.
Right.
Ugh,
Agreed.
yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. I'm gonna be groaning every time, but I agree with you. I think they don't seem to know how to leave original series canon alone. But again, like I didn't like the Gorn introduced, but I didn't hate the episodes where they were there. I will say at least I enjoyed them. So
Yeah, there you go.
I thought
Yeah.
Memento Mori was great, and then I mean they went full on in Balance of Terror in Equality of Mercy, and I thought that was a great episode.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're using it to good effect.
Mhm.
Well, I mean across the board though, you've had a lot of big Star Trek references come up. We sort of talk about the Star Trekiest episodes, but was there a specific fangasm moment that really jumped out to you?
100%, no doubt in my mind, no second guessing. Cybok.
Cybok.
Yes.
really,
God, yes.
really,
I was so excited about that, and I am so excited for season 2 to see what
Mhm.
they're going to do with that. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I
what
was
is it about
I was
Cybok,
stoked
Alan?
about Cybok too.
What is it about Cybok? 'Cause I actually never paid much attention to Cybok.
It's just a character that was basically a one-off.
yeah,
And I mean, he might be getting the that whole con treatment where he was a one-off character but then brought back in a really epic way. That's what I'm expecting from this Cybok.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
interesting.
I have no
had not thought
memory of
about that.
Cybok.
You know what? Let me go. Let me jump back to our previous question about
Okay.
about standout performances.
Okay.
Jesse James Keitel.
Oh yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
She was
hell
great.
yeah! God,
I
she was
really hope we
fantastic.
see her next season.
Yeah.
That was a good.
Oh, we will.
performance.
We will.
Yeah.
That was a good.
They can do a
performance.
spin-off series on her.
Oh, I wouldn't mind that at all.
Yeah, and then going back to the Cybok thing for a second, I mean,
Yeah.
Discovery season 2, you had all those flashbacks to Spock's childhood home, and every
Mhm.
single time I would be like, "Well, where's Cybok?" So I love that we're finally getting that right wronged. I mean, wrong righted. Well, I guess we'll find out.
All right, let's go back. Let's see.
Okay.
Oops, sorry. Elaine says, I was really confused for a moment about why Davy Jones came up in this conversation.
David Jones comes up in every conversation.
Right. It's like me and Bowie. It's going to happen somewhere. Dan Leckie says, doesn't Sulu come on board as astrophysicist in Where No Man Has Gone Before?
He does.
He is. We know that he's an astrophysicist at that point.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're not strictly adhering to continuity. They're adhering.
He could have been on the ship.
But
for
you
years.
don't know
basically-
when he came on board.
True. But I mean, they're basically treating the original series continuity the same way the movies did. That you'll honor it when you want to, and you don't honor it when you don't want to. I mean, Star Trek 5,
exactly.
Kirk seemed to forget that he ever had a brother. You know, like they would ignore what they wanted to ignore to tell their story. And that's the same thing they're going to do in Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Charles. I'm still struggling with the series, the original series episode Operation Annihilate when Sam's like dead. And now I'm thinking, well, Spock didn't say jack about. I worked with him, I served with him. Sorry about that, Jim. He's like, whatever.
No, but there was a nice moment. If you rewatch it, though, there's a nice moment when Spock, when he starts to say that, I know what you must be going through, kind of a statement to Kirk. I don't remember what the exact wording was, but then he stops himself and they have a kind of a moment there. So that could be interpreted a number of ways. Plus the fact that maybe Spock's thinking back to the time he lost his sister. So, I mean, there's a lot of different layers that add. So rewatch that episode and think about that.
Wow.
Anthony Williams' fangasm moment was seeing old Pike in the Wrath of Khan uniform.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort
of. He's right that it's modernized. It's a modernized version. It's not quite the Wrath of Khan uniform.
Right.
But yes, it's cool to see.
You know what I mean.
I know
it's the Wrath of Khan uniform if they had made Wrath of Khan now.
Okay.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And a Facebook user, possibly Michael Phillips, says, I found Strange New Worlds, All Those Who Wander to be a bit disappointing, but Memento Mori was great as far as the Gorn were concerned. Agreed.
Yes. Agree with that.
Introducing Chekhov as early as Strange New Worlds could potentially sort out the nitpick about Khan recognizing him.
That's true.
Right?
Yep.
Matt says, Cybok is the Andrew Garfield and the Hayden Christensen of the Star Trek universe. He needs redeeming. Oh my God.
That's amazing because I love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man.
I love Andrew Garfield in everything he does.
Yeah. Wow, this is amazing. I honestly, in talking to you guys for over a year, I actually did not know there were Cybok fans out there.
Oh, yes.
I did.
I would never have said I was a Cybok fan because he was, again, a one-off, and you know, who cares? But now that they've brought him back, the potential is so exciting about what they could possibly do for this character. I
see what you're saying because we had a real interesting discussion about Cybok and was he quote unquote borderline evil criminal? What would you call him? Yeah. So you're right, Alan. There's some depth there that could be mined because there's the whole thing of what is crime on Vulcan? What are Vulcan criminals? There's still a whole bunch of stuff to talk about there.
Yeah.
Facebook user says, yes, he was. I don't know who he is. I think that where no man has gone before and his line about doubling a penny every day.
That's back to Sulu as an astrophysicist.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, I gotcha.
They're talking about Gary Mitchell's power is growing. Yeah.
Right.
Dan loved the Far Beyond the Stars callback.
Yep. Me too.
Michael Phillips is now signing his comments, so we'll know which one he is. Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you, Michael Phillips.
That's what bothers me about TOS. It's not only episodic. It's like the characters have amnesia in between. That was kind of the situation with a lot of those.
A lot of the
even Next Gen and DS9 sometimes. Yeah. Scotty forgets all about the love of his life, Caroline, who Mourns for Adonis, and I love how Strange New Worlds has character continuity. Agreed. I like the mixing of those two things. Totally episodic storylines with character arcs that cross over them. That's the way it should be.
Yes.
I mean, even up to DS9, which was the most serialized of the old shows.
Yeah.
I mean, O'Brien spent a lifetime in a terrible prison environment and came out traumatized, and it was never mentioned again.
Right.
You know, he just goes back. You just go back to life.
Inner Light, the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
At least Inner Light got referenced back at some point.
One time, like a series or two later, and had they not just written an episode, he wouldn't. But it had no effect on him.
That's true.
You know, it's crazy.
Yep.
I heard I listened to some guys once on the podcast who talked about the original series said that there were no rearview mirrors on the Enterprise. Yeah, because Kirk would be like, and you know the old line, Kirk would go, that's what we call whatever freedom. You'll like it a lot. And then he gets in the ship and like, bye. And Ben Hyatt is like, you could almost see the mushroom clouds rising. He's like, well, they're a normal society now. So I do agree that I like the continuity more built in nowadays.
Yeah.
Anthony Williams points out that syndication is the reason for random amnesia. Possibly. Maybe I'm bullshitting that. But yes, that certainly is the reason that's always given for how you cannot have too much connective tissue between episodes because you never know when it's syndicated in what order these things are going to get shown.
Right.
So, yeah.
Do y'all remember just a few years ago, there used to be what was called Spike TV?
Yes.
And Spike TV bought or had Next Generation. And I don't know if you remember it to what you're just saying now, it drove me mad. They would carve up, they would have like a data block. It'd be 6
Oh
episodes.
yeah.
And it'd be from all over these weird years. And they'd have an
Yeah.
O'Brien block. And sometimes I'm like, I don't even understand where you are. Even the connective tissue that was there, I was lost all the time. So but that's what they want, to be able to cut it up like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dan says maybe Hard Time was too much too hard. Oh,
that's the
I get
sequel.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
All right, well, going back to current Star Trek. I mean, what else is there? I mean, what are your big takeaways from the year? You know, like as you look back on the last year of Star Trek that we've had, like what sort of sticks out in your mind the most?
How a lot of Trek is being made by people who were 90s Trek fans.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot. So there's a lot more pulling in of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Where I think the 90s Trek was trying to avoid pulling in TOS.
Mm,
To a
At first,
point.
yeah, a lot
At
of
first.
early Next Gen, they were very against that. But even then, I mean, you had Sarek show up in season
Right.
3
Season
of
3,
Next
yeah.
Gen. Yeah, I mean, the second episode after the pilot, they're just remaking the Naked Time. You know?
Right.
Um,
And
I'm
McCoy
agreeing.
walks on the bridge in the first.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I agree
Um,
with Veronica says in that I do think that, some of the issues that some of us have had with things like Discovery is that they are so much influenced by Abrams' track, Star Wars, and TNG, that one thing, whatever my qualms are about some aspects of Strange New Worlds, is I do feel people who like the original series in this one. Akiva Goldsman, I always get this Goldsman or Smith. I always get
Goldsman.
confused. Goldman, he absolutely reached back to the original series for the Gorn, and
Yeah.
even with interviews and stuff, even when I don't like some of his moves, he's a TOS fan.
Oh yes.
So that's cool to see that creeping back into it. That's been nice.
He posted on Twitter like the program from a Star Trek convention he attended in like 1972 or 73 or
Right.
something.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, he's been a fan,
Oh,
since
yeah.
then. Yeah.
Wow.
Matt says it's reached the point of saturation. Hard to imagine another show starting before Picard finishes up and opens a slot. And that's the plan. There will be something that'll fill the Picard slot once Picard ends. So we've got another year or so before anything like that is even a possibility.
Yeah, but I mean, they've already filmed what should be the final season of Picard, to our best of our understanding.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're gonna have to be on production soon on the next show to get it out for
Yeah.
next year. So
Exactly.
hopefully
So-
we're
Yeah.
getting to the point we'll start hearing something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I got a
And-
really weird, stupid question.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Ed.
No, you go right ahead.
A really weird, stupid question. Who would you rather cook for you? Cisco, Pike, or Riker with his omelet?
Okay, not Riker.
Yeah, because the guy calls omelet scrambled eggs or vice versa.
Man, that's
Pike.
tough. I would demand an Iron Chef style cook-off, and I will make my decision from that. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like Pike would win that because he takes old spaghetti and makes it into something.
Yeah,
I know,
but
but
I feel like
Cisco.
Veronica,
What's that?
I think you would like Pike's better because Cisco's is probably going to be spicier because it's very sort of New Orleans.
Yes.
I was
That
just
was
going
my
to say
other
the same thing.
yes.
Yeah.
I would take Cisco's because that man knows how to season his food.
Me too. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the stuff that Pike cooks. He's cooked pancakes and pasta, but
Yeah.
Cisco being from New Orleans down
Yeah,
that way,
baby.
yeah, I got to try that.
You know it. Oh
Yeah.
man.
I like
But
my
not-
classic foods.
All right. Surely Scotty has to come back for
Yeah.
Lower Decks. Well, that's possible.
Oh, well,
What's
he's
the
still
point
alive.
of him just
Yeah.
floating out in there otherwise? And the animated format of Lower Decks would give a prime get out to recasting the role, and they'd have to get voice. What I can't read. Never mind.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
you
they
know
just
what
have
he was
to have someone to voice the character, and I mean that's a possibility. That's something we talked about
Yeah.
when Spock and Uhura were in the holodeck programs. Like they've got a new Spock and Uhura, so we're a little surprised that they'd pulled the original clips. I mean, I'm glad that they did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's the possibility of recasting these roles through animation. I mean, but like you said, they're like, I'm thinking what Dan's talking about is there's a Scotty still alive at the time of Lower Decks, we presume, because he was in relics and he's still out there in a shuttlecraft somewhere. So yeah, you really could have Scotty show up.
Absolutely.
Doesn't James Doohan's son, hasn't James Doohan's son done some Trek stuff?
In a fan series, he has,
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if he could work.
He could. I'm sure he would not turn down the offer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michael Phillips says Section 31. I'm assuming that's a reference to the slot that's going to be in the Picard.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think the struggle with that is Michelle Yeoh is very busy and very in demand right now.
Man, no. Because they were supposed to 2-3 years ago, we all heard for sure there was going to be a Section 31 series, and then it kind of stalled. You're right. Now she's like Oscar level with this movie. So yeah.
And she just joined a new Netflix series. So I think that so far as I know, all the parties involved would still like to do it, but it's a matter of scheduling, I think.
I would assume so. Dan Lucky says he suspects Una might get recruited to Section 31. That's an interesting thought.
Maybe.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Matt says, I kind of hope they rethink Section 31 and give us something different for Picard.
Agree.
To follow Picard, I would think. I would love for the folks who are working on Picard right now, like Terry Matalas has said that he would love to continue on with that time period in Star Trek, and I would love to see him do a show that just continued on after Picard, and just I mean, because to me that still feels like the present in Star Trek.
Yeah. Exactly.
We followed that time period for so long. I want to see what happens next. I want to see what's going on with the Romulans. I want to see what's going on with the Synths and the Klingons.
Right on.
Yeah, agreed. And I personally don't like Section 31 as a really big organization.
Yeah.
So I like them as a small clandestine one. The guy claimed there was like 3 men in a room.
Yeah. Right.
Elaine's deep and well thought out comment is Pike, yum. Girl, I am with you on that. Dan chooses Nexus Kirk as his chef of choice.
Big egg fan.
Oh.
Right. Matt says, I hope Strange New Worlds has a 7-year run and it goes right up to Pike's Destiny. Well,
Go ahead.
No. I was going to say it doesn't have to be 7. It can be, because it doesn't have to be 1 season per year.
True.
Or like 1 season tells 1 year's worth of stories. It could be 52 seasons and, it only tells 7 years worth of stuff.
And I was going to say, I want it to continue after Pike's Destiny at Menagerie. I want to see what happens next, because he didn't die. He's still on Talos, I mean, presumably he could still have a life there in some capacity, and I'd love to see what happens to Pike after that. And that would be a great way for them to give a happy ending to Pike's story.
And
absolutely.
And I will piggyback on that, what you said, Charles. I know I'm always complaining about continuity and changing things, but if you go and treat Pike after he ends up on Talos, we all know that the technology that they envisioned in the 60s wasn't accurate. So I would be okay if he were kind of healed. Yeah, that wouldn't be a canon change, because honestly, even in that time with those injuries, only being in a wheelchair, literally only able to beep lights, that doesn't make sense.
No.
And so I'm okay with them redoing that. Hell, give him a synth body. I don't know.
Well, here's an idea. What if the Illyrian banned genetic engineering technology can be used to restore Pike?
Absolutely.
That's
there
true.
You go.
Boom.
That's
solved
true.
it.
That's
and
true.
then he gets another spin-off series called Strange Old Worlds. Anyway, so Michael Phillips says, I love Michelle Yeoh. It's worth waiting for her.
True.
I agree.
Yep.
She's a great one.
Dan Leckie says, I keep hearing that SETI Alpha 5 series is proceeding in development as a dramatized podcast. Yes, I've definitely heard that as well. Yep. And speaking of dramatized podcasts, where's my Captain Proton?
Yeah.
Right.
That's although I would much rather see that than only hear it.
I'd love to just hear it, because then you don't have to worry about getting them back in live action. You can imagine them.
But you could animate it.
That's what I was thinking. Is I'd love
like
to
really stylized animation.
Yes, very stylized, like 60s looking animation, like 60s noir.
Okay.
God, I would love that so much.
Yeah.
But then that's much longer production time.
True.
And much bigger budget.
True.
Anthony says Star Trek Strange New Thirsts. Yep.
It was a full moon tonight or something. Everybody's in a mood.
Oh, is that what it is? Matt Swetman says, I wonder if next season they'll start saying it's 6 years off. Yeah, maybe. Sort of a morbid countdown.
Yeah.
So let's talk about next season. What do we think we want to see from all of these shows?
Oof.
What do you think that you're looking forward to most, other than Cybok? That's
All
my
of Lower Decks.
Yeah, I want to see more of number one in Strange New Worlds because I
Yes.
didn't see as much of her as I expected to.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, I really want to see a lot more of her, I think. And Ortegas. I'd like to see more of Ortegas. I like everybody in Strange New Worlds. I like we discussed this in the last few shows. Some of them didn't get as much to do. And of course that happens in a Star Trek show. So I would like to see some of them get more stuff to do, but really I want to see much more about number one and Ortegas.
I would like to see Captain Pike promoted to fleet captain, but stay in charge of the Enterprise so that he can meet Kirk without me having to tell Veronica every 10 minutes for the rest of our lives that in the menagerie he said he met Captain Pike when he was promoted to fleet captain.
Wow.
And he said only one time when he was promoted. You're right. I remember that. That's and I had always envisioned that the entire this is insane. I had envisioned that Strange New Worlds was not going to introduce James T. Kirk until the last episode, with exactly what you said was going to happen, Charles, was that Pike gets promoted to fleet captain and he goes, well, who's going to take over the Enterprise? This guy.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Well, I can buy it because he said, I met him when he was promoted to fleet captain, and then he said, I took over the Enterprise from him. And I can accept that those are two different instances that took place 6 years apart. But I would really like for him to be a fleet captain, even if it's for an episode. If it's a temporary promotion to fleet captain for that episode, I'll take it.
Yeah. Of course, there's always a possibility of, because we've seen the Kirk from season 2 on location shoots. There's always a possibility that he's in the series and he does not meet Pike.
They just keep missing each other.
Exactly. All right. Let's see. Michael says, anyone else find the Pike accident timeline confusing? One line in Equality of Mercy implies that he only left the captaincy because of his accident, which contradicts the menagerie. Also, he said 9 years in the first Strange New Worlds episode.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I see what he's talking about. But they also said, though, in Equality of Mercy that the reactor room on that ship was powered down and there was no cadets there. And that when the accident occurred, there was like no one around. So I can just buy that he took whatever precautions to keep all the cadets away from that area. And he himself stayed on the Enterprise, a random line notwithstanding.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And Dan says, I was waiting to see Klingons all throughout the first season of Strange New Worlds and was disappointed when they didn't show up despite the leak. So I'm looking forward to seeing them show up in season 2 and seeing how they interact with M'Benga. And I agree. The bad thing, the only bad thing that I can think of about Disco jumping 1,000 years into the future was that there was no platform at that point for our current iteration of Klingons, and particularly Mother L'Rell. And once Strange New Worlds came around, I thought, well, there you go. That means we're going to get more L'Rell. So I'm excited to see. I'm sure L'Rell's going to be on next season, and I'm excited to see it.
That should be the show. It should be a Klingon show.
There you
I
go.
have my own ideas about that. Yeah. I also would like the Klingons to show up in Discovery in the 32nd century.
Me too.
I want to know what's up with the Klingons.
Absolutely.
And I want Discovery to do what Discovery does best and just make them the wildest, craziest Klingons that send people raging on Twitter. But it's 1,000 years in the future, so you can't claim it's wrong. And they could just be the craziest Klingons you've ever seen.
Right. But you remember, well, you might not, I don't know. But in 87, when Next Gen was just starting, and the first episode haven't even gone out yet, and fans were inflamed that there was a Klingon on the bridge of the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Like, how is that even possible? We're at war with these people. Blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, it was insane.
Yeah.
And now it ain't even a thing, man. All right. Matt says, any thoughts on Lower Deck season posters mimicking the movie posters?
That's awesome.
Yeah, they've been doing that since the first poster that was like a motion picture poster. And I love it. Every year they do it. You guys, number 2, number 3. And I can't wait to see what next year's looks like. Hopefully there's whales. Or you know what? Better than whales. I hope it's those horny whales from Cetacean Ops.
Yes. Yes. I need more Cetacean Ops in the next season. Let's see. Dan says, looking forward to finding out what role Bruce Horak will be playing in season 2. Agreed.
Yeah.
Michael Phillips says, does that mean 2 years passed over the course of the first season? No. I don't think it means.
No, the first episode, they sort of said less than 10 years until the accident, but I think it was always set in 2259. Even though that comet had the number 2270 in it, which indicates that this comet was discovered in the year 2260, which, so they're a little bit off. But I think that 2259 is when the first season is set. So I think it's always been 7 years. I think they're just sort of exaggerating up, rounding up to 10.
Dan Lecky says, I'm pleased the Klingons were at least referenced in Disco season 4.
Yeah. I want to see them though.
I think that's going to have to be it for comments. We need to kind of get wrapped up here.
Yep.
Oh wow, it's after 9.
It is.
One
Yeah.
last thing I
I know.
have for you. You're looking for.
We're losing Keith.
No, well, there you
You
go.
guys hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, this we need to do this more often. I really enjoy doing the live shows, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Star Trek again in August. And in the meantime, we're gonna have a sort of a special episode the next one, and maybe it'll be out. Not as you're listening to this on Monday. If you're listening to this on our podcast feed, then the following Monday, it might be out Monday, it might be out Tuesday. But we're gonna do recording a special episode reacting to the Comic-Con news, whatever news comes out during the Comic-Con.
Yes.
So there might be a little bit of delay because of that, but we'll get that out just as quickly as we can. But also, several of us are going to be sort of spotted coming up soon around the ESO network, starting, I think, with Veronica. You're appearing on an upcoming episode of Earth Station Who.
Yep.
Flying
Oh,
solo.
really?
Yeah.
You want to tell her about what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I was talking about the Dominators with Patrick Troughton and the best entirety of Doctor Who gang.
Okay.
Oh, that's exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dominators is not one that gets a lot of love, and it ain't great, but I still enjoy it. So,
Yep.
I'm looking forward to hearing that.
One of the few complete Troughton, Jamie, and Zoe episodes. But yeah, it was my very first time doing a podcast without Chuck.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Turns out she loves it. I'm off the show.
Yeah.
And then Alan and Keith, you guys are going to be appearing on the Earth Station 1 podcast coming up soon, giving your thoughts about Strange New Worlds.
Right.
One.
Yes, we sure are. I'm looking forward to that. I get
That's
to
on
say
Monday,
all the
right?
same stuff again that I've said for the past 10 weeks, but to new ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So everybody,
Or I'll
check that
just
out.
change every opinion I've had on every single thing.
That'd be awesome.
Do the opposite. It'll be a opposites day.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep. And then I'll be on an upcoming episode of Earth Station Who without Veronica, talking about the Seeds of Doom. So that should be a lot of,
Ooh,
or
I
the Seeds
love
of Death.
that one. Yeah,
Which
you
one has
better
Tom
figure out
Baker?
which one it is.
I
Tom
know.
Baker is Doom.
Yeah, Seeds of Doom. That's what I thought. All right,
Don't
Alan,
get up
where
there
can,
start talking about Troughton and Ice Warriors and stuff.
I know. Alan, where can people find more of you?
Well, I have another podcast on this very network, and it's called Modern Musicology, and we cover all sorts of music topics. And we have a couple of topics. We have an interview with an author coming up in our next show. And after that, we have 2 sort of linked episodes. One is It Should Have Been a Single, and the one after that is going to be Killer B-Sides. So I'm excited about that. And you can find my little publishing company, Cosmic Press, at cosmicpress.com.
And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on standard social media, Instagram, mostly nowadays, and Twitter, one day again, Facebook. And you can probably find me on the internet trying to figure out what the hell happened to the Q in Picard. Because I still want to know what happened.
And how about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
Or?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And I'm afraid to ask, but do you have a closing for us this week?
Yes.
We're live.
Yes. Ooh, I just hit the mic. Live long and prosper.
Hey, I'll take it.
Oh,
There we
we'll take
go.
that. That's good.
That'll work.
Bye, everybody.
All
Thank
right.
you very much for joining us.
Take care, everybody. Have a great week.